Welcome to the Huntsman's Journal Podcast, a hunting story radio show. And now, your host, Adam Huntsman.
Welcome to the Huntsman's Journal Podcast, a hunting story radio show. I'm your host, Adam Huntsman, and today we'll be telling you the story of Alex Comstock and his hunt for a mature whitetail buck in North Dakota. Okay, welcome to episode 13 of the Huntsman's Journal podcast. I'm your host, Adam Huntsman, and today we're going to be telling you the story of Alex Comstock and his hunt for a mature whitetail buck in North Dakota in the 2016 season. And you know what? It was one of those deals where, obviously, if you're listening to this in chronological order, usually we release our episodes on Thursdays. And if you're listening to this in chronological order, today's a Monday. But I had interviewed Alex about this hunt last week, and it's Saturday night. I actually just got back from hanging out with Jesse from, if you actually would remember Jesse from episode 3 about his hunt for spring black bear in Canada. But either way, got back from hanging out with him, and I'm just super excited. We kind of got some stuff in the works, and too tired to go to bed, so I figured I would edit up this episode and get it to you guys early. So super excited to bring you guys this interview. Alex is the owner of whitetaildna.com, which is a whitetail deer hunting blog, and the dude has put down some seriously nice whitetail bucks. And this is the story of his 2016 season in North Dakota, where he was able to put down a really nice buck in the late season. But we'll just let him tell you the story for himself. This is episode 13, Alex Comstock and his hunt for a mature whitetail buck in North Dakota. Enjoy. Okay, and on the phone with us today is Alex Comstock. How are you doing today, Alex?
Doing pretty good, Adam. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, my pleasure, man. Glad you reached out. Everybody, like we always close every episode with, and we always ask if anyone has a hunting story of their own that they'd like to share. And Alex is another listener that actually reached out and wanted to share a story. So, actually, thank you for reaching out and just coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely, my pleasure. Fun to be here.
Yeah, podcasting's fun. You get to have a lot of cool conversations with people. That's for sure.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what then, like we usually do, we'll start off the episode, with just a little bit about yourself. So, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah. So, right now I'm 22. I live in North Dakota, and pretty much just like to deer hunt. No, but deer hunting is, my main thing in life. It's kind of what drives me. It pretty much drives all I do, and yeah.
Yeah, I think we can all definitely relate to that. It's funny, I don't know if you have a girlfriend or whatever, but it's funny because it's kind of like that year-round thing where, like, if it's not hunting season, it's shed hunting. If it's not shed hunting, you're prepping stands. And I mean, I don't know for you, but at least for me, it's kind of like if it's, at first it was like, oh, it's not hunting season, you don't have anything else to do with it. Well, that's not exactly the case. So
yeah, I can definitely relate. I live with my girlfriend, and she's always like, I'll tell her that, well, it's not hunting season anymore, so it's not going to be as busy. And, she's already catching on, and she'll be like, well, it's always something. You're always going somewhere or doing something. I'm like, well, it's kind of like it's a curse, but that's why we do it.
Yeah. It's passion. It's a passion of ours. It's, gotta
exactly.
Use that. Yeah. But very cool.
Like,
go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, it's like, it's something that it's like when you have to do it, because if you're not doing something, you just don't feel like, alive. That's what I kind of like to think of. Yeah,
absolutely. Definitely kind of gives you purpose, I guess. Yeah, so if you're not doing it, if you're not moving forward with it, like, I don't know about you, but I'm sure it's the same, but it just drives me insane. Like, I'll be sitting there, it's like, oh man, I got to get out and walk the property. I got to put new posted signs up. I got to move this stand. There's always like that constant to-do list that never really goes away, and like you said, if you're not making progress on it, you're just like, man, I'm slacking. I gotta get on this.
Yeah, seems no matter how much you get done, there's always more to do.
Yeah, there's always more to hunt, right? So it's a never-ending process.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but very cool, man. So now North Dakota. Now, for the listeners, you'll be sharing your story with a buck that you were actually able to harvest this year in North Dakota. Now, this was only your second year living in North Dakota. Am I right?
Yeah, correct. So it was my second year. So I moved to North Dakota in the summer preceding the 2015 season. Mm-hmm. So it was my second full season hunting in North Dakota this year.
Gotcha. And how did you do last year?
Yeah, it was a good. I mean, I was able to shoot that buck in December, and then, it was a good. I actually had. Well, it was the second buck I shot, but the first one that I recovered, I had shot a buck in November that I had. He was quartering away, and I pulled the shot forward and hit him right in the shoulder, and never recovered him. But side story, I found his sheds this past weekend. So
nice, congratulations.
Thanks. So I know that he at least made it through that because, I didn't think he died, but there's always that little part of me that wondered,
Sure.
But finding a shed off him I was definitely breathing a huge sigh of relief.
No, absolutely. Were you able to get any trail camera pictures of him before that, or was this like the first time that you were able to get any kind of evidence since actually shooting him that he was still alive?
Yeah, this was the first evidence because I don't think that his core area wasn't where I was. Mm-hmm. So I only had 2 trail camera pictures of him in October that were just random before I had a shot at him. And then during the middle of the rut, he came through and then had no evidence after. So that's kind of worried me too. And then, so I was actually kind of surprised to find his shed, but I was definitely happy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Definitely a good find. I have yet to find. Well, in all fairness, I've only really gone out a couple times shed hunting this year, and it's tough. Just a lot of the properties that I hunt super thick, and it's super hard to walk very far. And the end result is I really haven't found too many sheds yet. So at least not only did you find a shed, but like you said, you kind of got to breathe that sigh of relief after finding the one that you hit. So very cool. Now, as far as North Dakota, where had you lived before that?
So before that, I was in northeastern Minnesota. So I'm about 4 or 5 hours west now, pretty much due west from my hometown.
Okay. And was there a big hunting or a big difference in the hunting whenever you moved?
Yeah, really big difference. So where I'm from, like my hometown in Minnesota, most of the hunting most of my bow hunting is like urban. So there's like a city hunt. So I went from, I'd set stands where I'm literally setting stands that go, all right, well, this baseball field's going to funnel them around to behind this school. And there's a fence behind this yard.
Yep.
To out to North Dakota where I've literally got stands on public land that I have to, you can't take a vehicle in, and I've got to walk 1.5 miles plus to a stand, Yep.
Yeah, no, I get you. Now, here's a question. As far as now, comparing the two, I mean, did you find that it was easier to hunt the more urban spots as opposed to the more open spots? I've only had a little bit of experience with that, but from what I've heard, it can actually be really you can actually be really successful doing it. Is that something that you had found?
Yeah, I think there's definitely major differences, but as far as like the urban setting, I think you can just get away with more. Mm-hmm. I mean, I shot a 160-inch buck in 2013 from a stand that I think I sat 25 times in a row, like consecutive times. And I would never dream of doing that out here,
Sure.
I mean, because I'm sitting 30 yards off a road, and if I have a quote-unquote wrong wind, well, people are walking their dogs. I mean, the night that I shot my buck in 2013, about 20 minutes before I shot him, 2 snowshoers had come by 30 yards from me. So I think more you can just get away with a lot more. Because out here, I mean, you get the wrong wind and a deer gets a whiff of you, and they're in the next county.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Like you said, it's kind of like I could imagine them still, they're just used to that in that particular area, and then like you said, even in that situation, I could see them being even tucked further back in that same parcel. It's just where they smell it. I could definitely see them reacting differently just based on like the little locations there.
Yeah, I mean, and it can hurt you too, because I swear in the urban hunt that deer are walking with their heads up looking in trees.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah,
they're not stupid.
I'd have does blowing at me from, I feel like 100 yards away that I never moved once, and they never saw me. It's just, they clearly saw me, but they didn't smell me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, they just walk around. They're just looking for that blob at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's the differences, and so I don't know if I'd call it easier, but I just think you can get away with certain things more.
Sure. No, that makes total sense. And I'll correct myself there if I had said the word easy before. No hunting is ever easy. So if I did say easy, I'm going to take that back right now. So.
That's true.
Yeah, but it's very cool. Okay, so then now you're hunting in bigger areas. How did you approach that? I mean, and if that's a completely different style of hunting, what was your plan of attack kind of going into this from the very beginning last season and then kind of moving into this year? Yeah,
so when I first came out here, so I've got one buddy, Tyler, that I do all my hunting with, and it was pretty much, I think I got out here in like August, and North Dakota season opens in September, so you can hunt, real early. It's like September 2nd or 3rd is their opener.
Oh, wow.
And so we kind of just looked at a map, and like I have this thing that shows me all the public lands, because in North Dakota they're called plot lands, so it's private land open to sportsmen. So like landowners like lease it out, and you can hunt on it. So we were looking at all the public parcels within an hour of where we were.
Mm-hmm.
And then it started doing a lot of driving, looking for deer in the summer. That first year we didn't have much time, so we kind of relied more on trail cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of picked a whole bunch. I mean, we run a lot of cameras. I think between me and Tyler, we have 28, 29 trail cameras, something like that. So
we get you got a little fleet there.
Yeah, we got a lot of them. Sometimes can be a curse too, trying to keep up with it and not going off the information that off your gut. You're trying to base everything off a week ago, but
yeah. Now, are those 20? You said 20, 28 or 29?
Yeah, 20. It's somewhere around 30. I know that. I don't even know exactly.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, so of those 20 whatever trail cams, I mean, how many properties would you be hunting then, or just keeping an eye on?
Yeah, I probably have them spaced between. In the summertime, they're kind of everywhere. So in the summer, we're checking out multiple. I've got them on, probably 1 to 2 per property. So 15, 16, 17 different chunks of public. I mean, we have like 1 or 2 pieces of private now, but kind of everywhere. And then I'll kind of leave a lot of those through the season, and we kind of zero in on, 2, 3, 4 pieces of property during the season.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I'll be checking 12, 13, 14 cameras, somewhere in that range. And a lot of the other cameras I just let sit all year, and then I'll use it for, the next year looking back, because a lot of those properties aren't going to hold any bucks that that we want to go after.
Sure. Yeah. And like you said, at least that way you can kind of look back and go, oh, okay, this wasn't worth our time, or this might be worth our time next year. And that makes total sense.
Right, or if a buck shows up sporadically 4 days in a row in November, kind of keep that in the back of our mind for next November or whatever.
Sure. Yep. No, the more data you have, the better you can make a decision, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Gotcha. Okay, so that was your kind of going into it. You picked out a couple parcels. You've got your trail cameras out. From there, I mean, the buck you actually wound up shooting this year, was he a buck that had shown up on your trail camera, or how did that whole deal work out?
So I'm going to back up till going into 2015 again real quick.
Sure, please do.
So that season was a little different because we had actually picked up this buck that, Tyler ended up shooting, so I don't know the score. It was like, I think he was 181 inches, I think.
Jeez.
A giant. So as soon as we got pictures of that deer, we focused on him.
Mm-hmm.
And so 2015 was kind of spent hunting that deer. And then Tyler ended up harvesting him in the end of October. And then the rest of November and December was me kind of just bouncing around a lot of properties, trying to figure out the lay of the land. Didn't end up shooting one, found some good bucks. So then fast forward to this past year. And then this buck that I was shooting, I actually never knew of till the day I shot him.
No kidding.
Yeah, so.
Oh, dude, you gotta love it. It's so funny. Like, even I just think it's hilarious that, like, with all the work and effort and, everything that we do, all the trail cameras, all the, year-round scouting, everything we do, to get whatever information that we think we have, and then you go out and there's just this, just an unknown deer shows up out of nowhere. It just blows my mind. It just goes to show you how sneaky, or not sneaky, but just how, like, cagey and crafty these creatures are.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. You think you know them, but they'll do something the next day that, you're like, what the heck, or, whatever.
Yeah, I think we like to give ourselves, maybe a little bit more credit than we actually deserve.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, very cool then. Okay, so then you had only seen this deer the day you shot him. Going into the season, then why don't you just take it from there? Going into the season, what was your plan? Did you have deer that you were focusing in on, or just go ahead and speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this past season played out pretty much the exact opposite of what I wanted. So, though I live in North Dakota, and after I realized, how good the hunting really is around me, I focus on here. But then I still go hunt in Minnesota, and then I also hunt Nebraska. So I try to focus on all three states, but what I really wanted to do this year was to tag an early season buck in North Dakota. Mm-hmm. And so this past summer, me and Tyler worked really hard all summer, running lots of cameras, once again, doing a lot more driving and glassing bean fields at night and whatnot. And going into the season, we had a list of about somewhere probably between 8 and 12, I'd have to look, what I'd say shooters that were mature deer in my mind, and had one giant that ended up getting shot by another guy that was like 180 again, that I kind of spent too much time focusing on because I never got a trail camera picture of him in daylight. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of time was spent on him in September and pretty much hunting a deer that didn't live where I was anymore, because he ended up getting shot like 3 miles from where I was.
That's rough.
And so most of September was me spent chasing a ghost. I wrote an article about, the danger of chasing a ghost, because in the time I was wondering, like, am I hunting a deer that I have a chance to see? And I was hunting what I thought was smart, and then the right weather fronts I would go into where I thought he might be bedding. And I just think I would get pictures of him like every 2 weeks at 2 a.m. And so I was on the outskirts of his area, and it was a deer that was so big and, kind of distracted me, I guess, because I'm not convinced, but I'm pretty sure there's other deer that I would have had a pretty decent chance at shooting had I not been so focused on this, giant buck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we've all been there at one point or another.
Yeah, because when I look back at trail camera pictures and data, I had other bucks that were showing up in daylight in September, but it happens.
Right, yeah. Now, you said that he was shot a couple miles away. Was that also still in September, or was that, what time of the season did he actually end up getting taken?
He ended up getting shot the first week of November during gun season. So one of my buddies knew a guy and had sent me the picture, and he was like, "Hey, Shaq's dead." And I called him Shaq, and I was like, "Oh man."
Ooh, yeah.
But
I hit a buck. Actually, this was my you. You had mentioned your 2013 season. This was my 2013. No, I'm sorry, I lied. It was my 2015. No, 14. Man, it all gets blended together. My 2014 season. I had shot, or I had the same kind of thing where I had gotten tunnel vision on, just a giant mainframe 8-point, and I wound up actually making a move on him on Halloween, and shot him. At the last second, hit a branch and deflected, and just it wound up hitting him. But long story short, I was never able to recover him, and again, just not to kind of deviate too much. Same kind of situation where it was like a week or two later where a friend of a friend had sent me a picture of this buck that he had shot that was on the adjacent farm, and I think that was more like 2 miles away, but it was the same deer. He had had the scar, or not the scar, but like the wound from where I had hit him, and
Yep.
never the text that you really want to get, unfortunately.
No, I mean, I was happy for the guy, but
of course, yeah.
Point.
Yeah.
And I mean, looking back, I think it was kind of a blessing because, I mean, October was horrible for me. I don't think I saw a mature buck in October. I mean, and I was kind of hunting the area at this point. Couldn't decide if I wanted to chase Shaq or if I wanted to hunt a different deer, and so I was kind of hunting the general area where he was. I also had other bucks that I was hunting there, but kind of in the back of my mind, I was hoping he would appear.
Sure. Yeah, you were in a position where he might come by, right?
Right, exactly.
Gotcha.
And then once I got the text that he was dead, it was kind of like, all right, well, I turned and I've got all these other bucks to hunt, and it's like, now where do I go? You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. So on that note, then, you get your text. Where do you go from there?
So from there, I kind of just looked, and by then, I think it was November 5th when he was shot. And so it was just getting into that stage of the rut where, I mean, if you're trying to hunt a specific buck, I mean, I feel like the rut's not the best time to do it. Mm-hmm. But if you're just trying to shoot a mature buck, then that's why so many people like the rut,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But so I was trying to decide, should I hunt areas that I know would be good for just, downwind sides of doe bedding areas, I mean, classic rut spots, or should I try to focus on a certain deer?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I kind of did, was to just hunt areas where I thought I could get a mature buck shot. And then let's try to think here. The first week in November was slow. The rut here too, it always seemed like it's a little late. So the week between about the 10th and the 20th is when last year is when I saw some of my best activity. And then once again this year. And on the 12th of November, so Shaq was my number one. And then, don't make fun of me with my names here, my second hitless buck was Kobe. And
sensing a pattern here.
Yeah, and then my third was D. Wade, and he ended up being shot as well. But
oh, jeez.
But so Kobe, he's like a mainframe 10-pointer, probably, I don't know, 155, 160. We had an encounter with him in September when I was filming Tyler one night, and actually that was really cool because we were hunting in the pouring rain, and he came out and just barely skirted us. But so I really wanted to shoot that deer. And then I'm kind of going all over the place here. But on the 12th, I was in my stand like 10, 20 minutes before legal shooting light, kind of rush into the stand a little late. I feel like I'm always late in the mornings.
Mm-hmm.
I climb up to my stand, and then all of a sudden this doe runs by me. And it's like to that point where it was a pretty bright moon, and so it was light enough to see like with your binos, but I mean still 15 minutes before shooting light, so clearly, you can't shoot.
Yeah.
And then all I hear is the loudest grunting I've ever heard in my life. And I'm scrambling in the dark trying to grab my camera just so I can get audio of this. And I can't find my camera, and then I look, and all I see is this giant coming after this doe, and I put up my binos, and it's that buck that I call Kobe, and he came about probably 5 feet from my tree stand.
Oh, no kidding.
And he stops right under me, and my bow's still on the ground. Well, I mean, it's too dark anyway.
Yeah.
And at this point, I can't find my camera. It's in my backpack tucked away, and And he's standing about 5 feet from me, and then he just lets out the loudest grunt I've ever heard in my life, and he takes off after it. And I was like, holy smokes,
Oh, jeez.
So then I get my bow up, and I'm thinking, in the next 10 minutes or so, maybe something will happen.
Yeah.
I grab my camera, and as literally like 2 minutes later, as I grab my camera, I still don't have it on yet. I look, and there's another buck coming at. This doe is clearly hot. This another buck's coming, and it ended up being the buck that I shot, but didn't recover. And he came within about 10 yards of my tree stand, following that same doe. And so I'm like, wow, this is a hot doe. I probably should sit all day, and didn't get any video of him or anything. Get my bow up. Didn't see a single deer the rest of the day.
No kidding. So that was all right before the break of day.
Yeah, I mean, if they would have came through 10 minutes later, that would have been, both of those deer came within 10 yards of my tree stand and were standing perfectly broadside.
Oh, jeez. Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
What? Now you had said this was on the you said the 12th?
Yep.
It's funny you mentioned that. I shot my my Pennsylvania buck this year on the morning of the 12th as well, and like you had mentioned, how bright it was. That if I'm not mistaken, I think it was that supermoon, or if it wasn't, I don't think it was the supermoon. I think it was right before the supermoon.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I think you're right. It was right around that time or something.
Yeah, and I only remember just because it was the same kind of thing where I was walking to my stand and I remember looking at my bow, and literally it cast. You would hold it up and it cast like a very vivid shadow, on the ground, and it was just a super bright morning. But I wonder if there's something to that super moon,
Yeah, because I know. Yeah, because I know a couple people that shot bucks that morning too. So I hadn't even thought of that beforehand.
Might be something we might have to Google when the next supermoon's going to be and make sure we're out in the stands.
I think that's funny what you said with it being so bright though too, because that right after it happened, I had sent a tweet out saying, two giants just came through, couldn't get a shot, still too dark, and someone had tweeted back at me, I don't remember who, and he was like, how can you see exactly what deer it is and not be able to get a shot, just because the moon was so bright? And I was like, well, it's so bright I could see them through my binos, but you can't, you put your pin on them, you're not going to be able to get a shot.
Right. Yeah, there's that very, it's not a very long period, obviously, but yeah, it's where you can see, but getting a shot off on in that lighting is just probably not the best idea.
Yeah, it's shooting deer in the dark is probably not a very good idea.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody listening.
Unless you have a really bright spotlight. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. Okay, so that's the morning of the 12th. You had your encounter with these two giant, awesome deer. You said got all tongue tied. So you said you sat all day and didn't see anything else that day. How did you proceed from there?
Yeah, and then so that was the 12th, and then I have to look. I think it was the 13th or the 14th. I had another encounter. Let me see here. I log every day that one other thing that I do, which I think helps too, is in my phone, just on the notes, every day that I hunt, I log what I see, what the wind was, what time and weather. And that's one thing that I think is kind of helpful. And you can go back and notice trends, Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. So on the 15th then was my next encounter. And that was in the same stand that I ended up shooting the buck that didn't recover. And this was with a buck that I called D. Wade, who ended up getting shot by a neighboring hunter. But he was a buck that this area is really interesting because it's public land and it's like 200 acres of river bottom. And then it's like the only legit woods really within a few miles. Mm-hmm. And so I think they kind of just travel it a lot during the rut too. There's a few bucks that kind of live there, but so this buck I had gotten a picture of, I think just one trail camera picture of in September, and he was a really noticeable buck because he had a split G2 on one side and then he also had a split G4 on the other side.
Oh, very cool.
And he was a real big buck, and he came, I had just hung the stand that day in a new spot, and he came down at last light, well, within like 10 minutes last light, and there's this major trail. I'm sitting right along this river that kind of pinches down like 20 yards in front of the tree stand.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a major crossing right there. And so I was figuring he's going to come down, take the trail across the river, and, it was going to be shooing. And so he comes down, and then he heads the opposite way. And I was like, kind of like, what the heck? And so then I sent a grunt at him, didn't really care. He goes in and crosses the river in a real odd spot that I would have never guessed. And I kind of sent the kitchen sink at him, and I snort wheeze. It was grunting, and he would always, I got him to look at me, turn around, take one step, and then he just kept going on his way. I don't know if I feel like he had a destination in mind, but so it was like my second or third encounter with a shooter in just a couple of days. And I, like I had said, I hadn't had an encounter with a mature buck all of October.
Mm-hmm. And again, at that point, that's kind of in that sweet spot area where you had said the previous year, like you said, that between the 10th and the 20th, where you seem to have like the most luck, right?
Yeah. Gotcha. And like this spot where I had that encounter was probably, it's only like 300 yards away where I had the encounter with the two big ones before I got light out just a couple of days prior.
Gotcha. Okay. And so now at this point, well, I guess let's take a step back. And just as far, it seems like you're having a lot of luck in this one particular area, and without giving too much information away.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you want to say here. I know you mentioned river bottoms and everything. But as far as like the terrain of the land, is it is there? So I'm trying to be careful because I don't want to give you a loaded question here. But as safely as you can, could you describe the property? Is it super thick? Is it open? Did that affect your hunting style, or approach to this property? Or, why don't you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this property is pretty interesting because a lot of people that I know now that live out in North Dakota, they do a lot of their hunting a lot further west than where I'm at. And it's all open, just open, no trees. The difference from where I was hunting to just another 30 minutes west is like night and day different.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people that I know aren't as used to hunting in like literally just like hunting where there's trees around, which is kind of weird, which kind of sounds weird.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is like I said, it's like a 200 acre piece of timber, and it runs right along this river. And so I naturally was attracted to it because from where I'm from, it's big woods, or, it's all timber wooded.
Right. That's what you're used to usually hunting.
Right. And so this is bordered by crops it's a highway on one side, on the west side, and the east side it's crops. And then within the timber, it's like, we're, it's North Dakota, so it's primarily flat, but there's a little bit of topography here. So it's like a little bit, it's pretty open. There's some maples, and then there's like this pretty big ridge that runs through it. And then it drops down into this thick bedding area that runs along the river. And the thick bedding area is kind of where I did most of my hunting during the rut. And then it kind of comes back. So it's almost like a big bowl.
Mm-hmm.
If you can kind of like picture like on the top, on the west side is the highway, and you go into the timber, and it's this big ridge, and it just kind of drops down into this bowl and this swampy stuff. And then it comes back up into the crop fields on the east side. And so it's kind of just a natural kind of cruising area with bedding, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And then as far as like your approach to hunting, the land, were you going out and, were you doing run and gun sets, or did you have like, stands set up strategically throughout the property?
I had stands set up, but I pretty much moved every single one throughout the season. So it was kind of running and gunning, but I'm going to do more of that going forward. Like now I have a really good run and gun setup, but I didn't have any good run and gun setups. It was all $30 Menard stands with screw-in steps.
Gotcha.
And so
yep.
It was a lot of moving those around where I would I'd go grab a stand and then bring it somewhere else. So I guess you could call that running and gunning.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's kind of going back to our conversation about, we think we've got them figured out, and then we actually get in the game and we're like, yeah, no, I'm wrong. I gotta go move this stand.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's we're midway through November there. How did the rest of November go? Because now the buck you actually wound up harvesting, that wasn't until late season, right?
Right. That wasn't until December in a completely different area that I was hunting in November.
Gotcha. And then between all of these encounters and that encounter, you said that you had another encounter with was it Kobe that you had shot and never recovered?
So he's the one who I wanted to. He was the giant that I had seen that morning.
Mm-hmm.
And then the buck that I saw the morning of the 12th right after him ended up being the buck that I shot but never recovered on November 17th. So just a couple days after I had that encounter with the one that wouldn't come into my calling.
Okay, gotcha. So there's a lot of big bucks in this story. I'm from Pennsylvania, so I'm not really used to that. Got to keep them all straight, but
yeah.
Understood. Okay, so then kind of moving into December then, we're kind of talking post-rut, did that time of year, I'm assuming that would have affected your strategy kind of going into the month, but how did you go into December and what were you trying to key in on in that month?
So North Dakota, what I have found is it's a lot different than anywhere else that I've seen late season because the deer really like to herd up, whether it's brutal winter or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I hunted like December 1st in the same area that I had been hunting all fall, and it kind of started to pee any real good late season food around. And so what I ended up doing was I had reached out to a buddy of mine who lives out here. He grew up here, and I was like, do you know of anywhere that might be decent for late season hunting? Just trying to, exhaust your resources, I guess.
Sure.
And he had clued me in on an area that he knew of, and he had said it had been okay in the past. And I don't think he's ever hunted it, but he had shed hunted it in the past and said deer usually in their late season. So went out and checked out this area, and by happenstance, this field that he was talking about, the farmer never got to, and so I had a giant standing cornfield.
Oh, wow. How much were you talking about?
Probably, over 100 acres.
Of standing corn? Wow.
And it was the only standing cornfield within probably 10 miles.
Oh, my goodness. Talk about the perfect setup for a late season hunt.
Yeah, so I stumbled onto, and this area was, so from where all the big buck encounters were happening in the fall, this spot was about another 30, 40 minutes west. So it was kind of in that area that I was talking about where there aren't many trees or anything.
Yep, okay.
And so where this cornfield was, so where it even gets better. So on one corner, on like the northwest corner, was a small woodlot that was thick enough to hold deer for bedding, and on the opposite corner, kitty corner of that, there was another small woodlot that was you couldn't hunt the woodlot because you would bust every deer out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So I got two woodlots kitty corner to each other and a giant standing cornfield in the middle.
Sounds like a great place to set up an ambush spot.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. So I showed the day I showed up there, which was Friday, December 9th. I went in. It was just going to be a scout / maybe get a stand-up type of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Or not a stand, but a ground blind,
mm-hmm.
rather. And when I got there and saw, that cornfield was just absolutely pounded. And by this time, which we'll get into a little more, that first week of December, we had a nasty cold front come through,
mm-hmm.
with wind chills and between -30 and -50.
Whew, that's cold.
Yeah, the wind gets whipping in 30-40 miles an hour, and it is not fun to be out there.
I can imagine. Actually, and not to go off on too much of a tangent there, but you actually hunting that's got to take some planning. How do you approach just dealing with? That's cold weather. How do what do you do to try to make it as comfortable as possible? Is it literally just getting the best certain clothing, certain layers? What kind of tricks do you use to kind of stay out and deal with that? Because that is frigid to me.
Yeah, so when it gets that cold, I mean, first thing is what I want to do is I don't want to sit anywhere for more than an hour and a half, because when it gets that cold, you're just killing yourself if you're going to try to realistically go out and sit somewhere for 3-4 hours, you know?
Yeah.
And then what I do is I kind of dress light, as light as I can for the walk-in, because if you build up that sweat, I mean, you're going to freeze and you'll be done for soon, you know? And then is what I do. I mean, yeah, dress as warm as you can once you're in the blind or stand. I mean, ground blinds that time of year with the wind too really help. I mean, don't want to, you know, I love trees. I kind of really don't like ground blind hunting. I just like being in a tree stand and being able to see, and I feel confined when I'm in a ground blind.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But when it gets that cold, it's so much nicer.
Yeah, a little confinement might not be the worst thing at negative 30 or 40 degrees, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. And then I take like those little hand warmers, and I put them kind of like in my jacket, you know, in my boots. Pretty much I just put them anywhere that I can, just to try to keep a little heat. Mm-hmm. And then the biggest thing for me too is my hands. So I wear like just, you know, like big choppers that, you know, think of like yellow choppers. Yep. Like I wear those for the walk in and out because, I mean, those keep me warm. Mm-hmm. And any type of glove with fingers, I don't like when it's that cold. I mean, and then once I get into the ground blind, I'll have like my waist hand muff on. Yep. And I'll have that filled with hand warmers, and then I just keep my hands in there until I have to shoot.
Sure. Makes sense. And I mean, as far as actually shooting in that those kind of conditions, have you ever found anything like I mean, I've never hunted in something where it's been that cold, but I mean, just if you could think of one thing, you know, that, you know, if you're going to tell anybody who's going to hunt in whether that's that cold, what would you call out? I mean, other than, you know, everything you just said to stay warm.
Right. Well, one thing I do, which some people don't like the idea of because it's a little more movement, but about every 15 minutes I draw my bow and just like I was getting ready to shoot a deer. Mm-hmm. Because I think if you sit there so long, it's so cold. My biggest fear is going to draw back and all of a sudden you can't draw because you're so cold and you got so many clothes on, you know? Yeah. Yeah. So the biggest thing for me is just to draw my bow every now and again, just so I feel confident.
Sure. Do you ever crank the poundage down at all, just so that you don't have to worry about it as much, or is that just something that you don't worry about too much?
Yeah, I don't worry about that. I don't know how much would I go into having to resight in my bow, and it's just something I don't worry about.
Sure. No, that makes sense. Okay. So, again, you're hunting this piece of property. You know, you're set up on an ambush spot in this food source that's you got these two catty corner food lots to it. And you're out there trying to stay warm in the blind, lots of clothing. Go ahead and take it from there, sir.
Yeah, so I got the blind set up on the edge of this cornfield. And I'm at where the blind was, so I had to try to be strategic in the fact that I'm setting the ground blind in the wide open because I didn't know where to set it per se in the cornfield, because that would have been, you know, number one, set it in the cornfield, cover it in corn stalks. Yep. But having been totally new to the property, never been there before, not knowing exactly how they were going to be in there once they're feeding, I didn't want to do that. I'd rather set up on the trail into the corn. Mm-hmm. Sure. And so there was a couple areas that these trails came together before they entered in the cornfield. So I set the blind up probably 30 yards from the cornfield in a cut cornfield. And there was like a big rock pile at the end of this cut cornfield that I kind of tucked the blind up next to. So I set it up and I threw some corn stalks on it and then jumped in the blind. And by then it was about 2:33 and sunset was at about, I don't know, I think it was a 4:45. So that's like my first mistake. So I got set up too early. So I just said, you know, I don't want to be in there more than an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. I got set up at 2:30 and legal shooting light was till, you know, 5:15. So that's 3 hours. Mm-hmm.
A lot of time in the cold.
Yeah, that's for sure. And so I got pretty cold that night, and didn't see a deer till about 4 o'clock. And I was starting to get worried. So I was like, I haven't seen any deer. This looks like a great area. Am I missing something? And then at about 4:20, and the only reason I know all these times, I've got an article pulled up when I wrote about it, so I can tell you the exact time.
Nice. And
I have that perfect memory. At 4:17, I had a buck come out. No,
it's funny. I was kind of thinking, I was like, wow, man, he's really got this down pat. Like I know rough times, but 4:17, it's pretty specific.
Yeah.
But that's cool. We'll definitely link to the article then, so everyone else can kind of see this as well. But go ahead.
Yeah. So at about 4:20, like I said, I looked to my south into the cut cornfield, and all these deer were coming from one of the woodlots through the cut corn, headed towards the standing corn. And there was about, I looked, and there was 15, 20 does, and then all of a sudden those 15, 20 does somehow manifested into about somewhere between 50 to 70 deer.
Wow.
And yeah, I was blown. So if you kind of picture this, I'm sitting in my ground blind looking towards facing the standing cornfield, and the cut cornfield is to my left, and I had to look out my far left window. Almost behind me is where I see all these deer coming. And so I've got, I self-film, so I have my camera right in front of me, kind of faced like 45 degrees back behind me, and I'm looking through the viewfinder, and I see all these deer coming through. And now all these deer they're about 150, 200 yards away out in this cut corn, just kind of doing their thing, working their way towards me. And I'm looking at them in the camera because I've got my hands in my pockets because it's so cold. And normally I would have had my binos out looking at them all. Mm-hmm. But I'm looking through my camera, and I kind of notice a big buck. And I kind of look at him like, holy smokes. It was a giant 12-pointer. At this point, I start freaking out. Because at first I just thought, first of all, I'd never seen this many deer in my life at one time while hunting. This was just stupid, all the amount of deer that were coming at me.
Yeah.
And then I noticed this big buck. I start shaking, and then I watch them for, 5-6 minutes. They're kind of getting closer and closer. And then I hear something. I look to my right. So when I look to my right, it's kind of, since I was kind of turned, it was really where the ground blind was facing, right towards the standing cornfield. And about 5 feet from me was this big buck. And
oh, geez.
I was so focused on the other deer. This buck just snuck right up on me.
Yeah.
And what I think he just kind of came from the direction where the rock pile was hiding me. Mm-hmm. So he couldn't see me, and I couldn't see him, even if had I been paying attention. Mm-hmm. And I looked to my right, see him, and we I swear we locked eyes because he was so close to me. And he took off. And when he took off, I kind of made a failed attempt to just kind of smack my camera so it'd turn on the tripod to head towards him.
Mm-hmm.
And
yep.
Didn't get any of the shot, but anyway, he takes off, and he heads towards the other deer, and then he stops to look back at me. And when he stopped to look back at me, I pulled that bow back, and I guessed him to be 30 yards. I had nothing to range. Beforehand I was trying to range like dark spots of snow to try to figure like a loose corn stalk that was, trying to get just a judgment. And I had no idea. So I looked at him and guessed him to be about 30 yards, put the pin on him, let the arrow fly, and put it right in the Boilermaker. He ran about 100 yards into that cut corn towards the other deer, and I watched him fall over and then proceeded to freak out.
I can only imagine, man. Congratulations. So first of all, not only were you able to harvest this deer, but obviously he was only one of, dozens of deer all in one sitting. So, that's just insane. Whenever he was actually stepping out, what was going through your head? Were you thinking like, oh, he's too close for comfort? Like, I'm not going to be able to draw my bow, or, what were you thinking?
It all happened so fast. Like, I feel like it's a really common phrase where it's like, that happened so fast, but this literally happened so fast. You just imagine it in the time that I'm talking. I look to my right, there he is. He takes off. I grab my bow, draw it, shoot, and from the time I saw him to the time I watched him fall, like no more than like 20 seconds went by.
Oh, wow. So it was, in my mind, it was more of a more dramatic, drawn out, he steps out, you guys lock eyes, there's a couple seconds kind of thing, and then it all kind of goes down from there. So it was literally that fast. So you're talking like, I mean, between the time you lock eyes and the moment the arrow hits him, you're talking like 10 seconds.
Yeah, and I think it helped me because I've been notoriously, like, I struggle sometimes during the moment of truth because I just get so worked up.
Mm-hmm.
And this time it just happened so fast. I had no time to think. I just had time to react,
Yeah.
And I already had my bow kind of ready because all those other deer were coming at me.
Yep.
And it was just a matter of draw and shoot. I mean, the biggest thing was the yardage, and, I guessed right pretty much.
Yep. That just goes to show you, like you said, like even as much as, I mean, depending on where you're hunting, I know like hunting any field can be kind of difficult, but as any kind of information you can gather as far as like distances, it's for those types of situations, like so when they run out and they do something you didn't expect and you go, oh, well, you know what, that dark patch of snow was, like you said, that was 30 or that cornstalk was, 32 and he's right before it. But no, that is awesome, man. Congratulations again. That is a heck of a deer.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, anytime. So now, again, this was back in December. Now, after that, was that the end of your season, or how did the rest of the year go for you?
Well, technically, North Dakota, I mean, yeah, but it really wasn't because, with the amount of deer I saw, I saw 3 shooter bucks that night. And, my hunting friend Tyler hadn't shot a buck this year. And so the goal was to get him a buck out there. And so I spent a lot of time in December between hunting Minnesota, which is right across the border, and then helping Tyler, and both were unsuccessful. Minnesota, I didn't have any luck at all. And then in North Dakota, helping Tyler, we got him a shot at about 140-inch 10-pointer that he ended up missing. He's probably going to get mad at me for saying that, but it happens.
Yeah, that's right.
We actually did, that story in itself is pretty cool. We did a little like a little one-man push because it was a day that it was even nastier than when I hunted, and it was blowing snow and, I mean, super windy and crappy. And I did a little push because all the deer were bedded up, and he had about, and this is not an exaggeration, I wish he would have videoed it, but I didn't have, I have video clips of all these deer, but there was about 100 deer that ran past him in single file getting out, and this big 10-pointer was in the back, and he didn't really give him enough time. He tried to get him to stop. He stopped for a split second. Tyler sent the arrow over his back, and he took off. But part of the deal, but it was a really cool experience all around, just that area. I've never hunted anything like it in my life. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've already lost track of how many of these mature deer that you've had encounters with all in one season. So, I mean, no matter which way you slice it, it sounds like you and everyone you were out with, seems like everybody had a pretty decent season, and at least if nothing else had awesome encounters with awesome deer. So and that many deer, like that's exciting. What's that? You still there?
You there?
Yep, we're still good.
Okay, I just lost you there for a second.
Well, I tell you what then, on that note, we're coming up on time anyway, so we'll take that as a sign, and and we'll shut this puppy down. But before we do that, you had mentioned, you were self-filming, and you had written an article about, this hunt and everything. Where can we send everybody to go ahead and see if they want to, read the articles or check out footage or any of that good stuff?
Yeah, so you can just head to whitetailedna.com. And then I got everything on there. If you want to read the article from that night, you can just if you just go down, there's a journal section. And so I have all these journal posts, and it's in there. You'll see that. And then footage from the season, you can go into the video section, or you could head over to my YouTube channel at Whitetail DNA. And then for the footage from this hunt, it'll have to wait because that is going to be part of the TV show Destination Whitetail. So that'll be airing sometime next fall. But otherwise, pretty much whitetailedna.com. You can find everything there.
Okay, perfect. Well, like always, I'll be sure to link to that so that anybody listening, if they want to go and check it out, just go over to our website or I guess, it's not that hard, whitetaildna.com. But if not, if you're frequenting our site, just click on the links and we'll make it nice and easy for everybody to get to. So either way, thank you so much for coming on the show, Alex, and sharing your story with this buck. I really appreciate it. And again, congratulations, man. It's a hell of a deer.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate you having me on today.
Yep, anytime. And that does it for episode number 13, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you're listening to this in chronological order or in real time, it's a Monday. And so I hope this will kind of help, kickstart your week a little bit. I will try to get another episode out this Thursday just to kind of stick with our theme. I know I kind of got a little excited here and jumped the gun on releasing this episode, so I don't think any of you should suffer for that. So I will try to get an episode out on Thursday, so be sure to stick around for that. And like we were saying a second ago, if you have a chance, go ahead and check out Alex's blog. It's whitetaildna.com. A lot of good stuff on there, lots of good hunting stories. And if you need a fix or a scratch for your whitetail itch before the season actually picks back up, go ahead and check out his site. And while you're on the internet, please feel free to go ahead and leave us a rating or review on iTunes. Like we always ask, it's really appreciated if you would take a couple of seconds and leave us the rating or review. And as always, if you have a hunting story of your own, please be sure to reach out to us at thehuntsmansjournal.com or on any of the social media channels, and we'll get in touch and we'll do an interview and we'll get you on the show. So, again, thank you all so much for listening to episode 13 of the Huntsman's Journal podcast. I'm your host, Adam Huntsman. Hopefully we'll see you guys Thursday, and if not, we'll see you next week.